Hi, I'm Alyssa Lube. I am a sex educator trained through an ASEX certification program, and I've had about 5 years of experience in this field. So I have been wanting to watch and react to some content creators talk about sex and relationships and intimacy. So today we are going to watch Brett Cooper. I've never watched any of her content. I've seen some of the titles of the videos though, and it feels like it's going to be not for me. So let's dive in. I also was literally going to go to bed. I'm in my actual pajamas and I was like, you know what? I actually have a little energy in me, so let's do a little reaction video. Why not? So, this is the video we're going to watch today. Get married, have sex, raise a baby. So, okay. And also Brett Cooper has 1.65 million subscribers, which always makes me nervous because I'm like, damn, like the things that she says carries out to a humongous audience. And so if she's not careful, which most people are not when they talk about sex and sexuality because it's like a nuanced topic, could go really poorly. But let's just see.
Marriage is not just a lifestyle choice, it is the infrastructure for a family. And that infrastructure is quickly collapsing, and so are the birth rates. But here is what nobody is actually talking about, and that is the fact that Americans' desire for large families has continued to increase. Take a look at this graph. In blue, you'll see that that is 3 or more children. And while there was a massive decline in the 70s and 80s, that number of people that are wanting 3 or more children has been steadily increasing since around 2008, 2010. It definitely took off around 2015.
That's their ideal family size. I think much of the reason why people don't have families that size is because they can't afford it. It's extremely expensive to raise children in this country. So people start to weigh out their options and explore other ways of life that don't involve raising families of, you know, 4, 5, 6, whatever, 3 or more kids.
So, based on this graph and based on the statistics, people do still want to have families. They want to have children. And despite this desire for children, fertility rates in the United States have continued to drop.
I also hate when they say fertility rates because that implies that women can't get pregnant. It's the rate of pregnancy has declined. It's not the rate of fertility. That doesn't make sense.
They have dropped from 2.1 to 1.6. So, of course, if you pay attention to the culture war, if you are involved in the sociopolitical landscape, then you will probably see people on the left blaming the fertility crisis on climate change or the economy. The right will also blame the economy, but they'll also say that it is about health and the fact that women cannot have children anymore or they're starting too late. And there probably is some truth to all of this. Most women are not getting married at 20 years old anymore. They're not like me getting married at 22 or whatever it was. They're now getting married at 28, 29, and 30, and then after that is when they will start having children.
Okay, so I just read like 2 days ago that the median age of homeowners, first time homeowners, is 40 years old in the United States. People can't afford to have kids in their 20s. And people are getting married later and later because women now have the option of opening a bank account by themselves and having credit cards by themselves. My mom was born in 1966. Credit cards were available to women in 1972. Like, this is all so recent. It is so recent. And I think that that's being looked over. Marriage really was a business, and it was honestly, it was like survival for these women. Like, you didn't really have a choice. You had to have a partner. I'm such a different person now at 32, a decade later. When I look back at who I was at 22, I don't really trust her decision making, if I'm being so honest. 22, you're a baby. Like, you don't know anything at 22 still. And I'm a person who like worked from the time I was 14. Like, I'm not like a sheltered person. I don't know. Let's continue.
Therefore, lawmakers around the world are flailing. Not just Republicans in America that are concerned. I mean, Zohran Mamdani in New York is literally running on the idea of free childcare to make things, easier for parents. I don't think any of that actually solves the root problem because what we really need to turn the fertility rate around is a marriage boom.
I'm not gonna include her sponsorship in my video, but it was for a like meat company, which is so interesting. Whatever, get your bag wherever it comes to you, but it's like so random.
Birth rates are far higher among women who are married. 85% of US births still happen within a marriage.
Well, yeah, I mean, we still are in a society where we are largely traditional. I actually would like to know. Oh my God, I just realized all of these numbers are from the Heritage Foundation. Jesus Christ. Hang on. Okay, I don't like that it says and author's calculations. Replacement. They're calculating for replacement. Replacement is such a weird word to use. The Max Planck Institution. So this says that it is politically neutral. I mean, from a quick little brief overview, it does seem to be that way. So I just wanted to double check because the Heritage Foundation is immediately like a flag to me. But these numbers are coming from the United Nations and whatever. The birth rate declining like is not like we know that to be true. We don't really need to question that very much, but I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to see what it was going to come up with.
This is the percentage of US women between the ages of 20 to 44. That drop is insane. There has been a profound, huge cultural shift because marriage is no longer the default for young people. However, people do still want kids. They say that they crave big families with 3 or more children. However, they are simply not forming the stable relationships.
I'm finding something a little strange about this. This Gallup survey, which again, I don't know what their methods were like for collecting this information. At the very bottom, it says those who answered 0 are not shown. There's also people who don't want families at all. And presumably, those are people who are also interested in lifestyles that are outside of the conservative norm. And they're not included on this chart. And that's okay, but you can't just then disregard them later when you're talking about people who are, not wanting to get married, not wanting to have kids. Those people were not included in this chart. And then you're saying that that people want massive families. And that's just not really demonstrating this information the right way.
Delaying marriage, therefore, means delaying children in our culture. I guess we're still a little bit traditional, good for us, which ultimately leads to higher infertility risks and fewer total births. That right there is the crux of our fertility decline, the fertility crisis that we are seeing in America. In another episode, we covered the red pill movement and why men are having a hard time finding women. I'm not sure when we're going
Oh,
to
I want to
release
watch
that episode
that.
because this is pre-maternity leave, Brett. But in this episode specifically, I want to get into the femcells and their side of things. These are women who are not dating, and often they chalk it up to the education and financial gap between the two sexes. And to be fair, a lot has changed in that regard. But what happens when women start outperforming men? What happens when they become more educated than their male counterparts? Because women now in America in 2025 outpace men in terms of college graduation and advanced degrees. And
This
according
is
to a Bank of
true.
America report from back in January, women are also outpacing men in both income and in spending growth. And what this inevitably creates is a bottleneck. But in my opinion, I think that the bigger issue here is not the college degrees or the income, but it's the fact that these women do not want to get married at all because they require whoever they marry to fit into this box and this life that they have created with no compromises. They are not willing to take any responsibility.
Okay, that's a humongous jump and a huge assumption. Think, and we'll see how this conversation evolves for her. I think it's a little dishonest to display it that way because women outpacing men in college degrees and out earning men. There's a couple of things that happen there. Men have defined a lot of their worth by what they bring to the table, and what they bring to the table a lot of the times is income for a family. And so if they're no longer able to do that, now we've created this like cyclone of stuff that's happening. So I don't know, to paint it this way feels really, really lacking nuance, which doesn't terribly surprise me. And part of this is also part of the reason why it doesn't surprise me is because I'm coming from a completely different background and context than she is. There is definitely a reduction in compromise on behalf of the women because they no longer require a man. You don't need a man to get a mortgage or to get a loan for your home. I think to get a loan for a small business loan, I believe it was in the 90s that women were able to do that without their husband or another man signing off on that loan. So this is very recent, and women are now sort of like, I think, finding their wingspan, and they're trying to figure out like, okay, this is uncharted territory for everyone.
Now, one author whose name is Justin Murphy wrote on X that somewhere in high school or college, these women came to the view that maximizing their independence would be pure upside. This is not a particularly evil mindset, but it is new and it is essentially selfish. And it just happens to be based on a tragically false model of the world. Once a woman has financial independence, she is less likely to want any man, while all the best men are less likely to want her. And at the same time, she now feels even more entitled to the best men.
Why the shouldn't women have that perspective? Why shouldn't they? To me, that sounds like men are too intimidated to date someone with a master's degree. People in general, especially in the US, have gotten really used to independence being the most valuable asset in your life. And I feel like we're sort of losing touch with how social human beings are meant to be. So, I've had conversations like this on the live show where we've talked about like, women don't need a man. And I've argued for that perspective before. And I have since sort of changed my mind because I don't think that women need, all men or any man, but I think that we need community. We need all different kinds of people to make this world work. And we can't just edge out an entire gender. Now that you being the breadwinner is no longer your main function, what else are you going to bring to the table? Because now the women have a master's degree and the income. They also have a higher emotional intelligence rating on average. Women have all of this stuff together and it feels like men are sort of ill-equipped to find partnership in that. Which is, it's one of those things where it's like the patriarchy hurts everybody. This is what that means.
One of them wants to date a
She has
Waffle House
gorgeous
waitress. I don't
hair.
really care.
I wonder if
But
it's
I
all
don't think
real.
that that is unilaterally true. And in my opinion, I think that it is less that the best men don't want her because of her success or her ambition, but because of that entitlement that Justin touched on. These types of women require that a potential partner plays second fiddle to her career and her ambition and her success, and that he fits into this perfect life that she has spent years creating rather than being interested in building a life together. I think this is one of the most beautiful parts of getting married young is that you get to create a life with your significant other. And so many people are against that and they
Before
say,
your
actually,
frontal lobe
you
is
need to go
developed.
out and you need to have all of the life experiences. You need to get the job that you want and buy your dream house and get the
Hold on. 22 is young. Like I said, your frontal lobe is not even developed yet. I understand what she's saying. I think that in some cases, that is absolutely true. You can't expect people to be ready at 22 to pick their lifelong partner. I'm not saying you need to have every single experience in the book. 22 is when she got married. I'm such an idiot at 22.
car and do all the vacations that you want. And then you can find a partner to fit into that world. But that's so hard because then you've created this entire life. You're almost like a fully formed human being, and it's much harder
Oh, God forbid
to
you're a fully
incorporate
formed human
another
being.
human being into that life. And I think so many people, especially on the left, and this was especially popular with millennials, will say, no, 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 don't get married young, don't settle down young, because you need to accomplish all of these things before you get married and before you settle. And in my opinion, I think that a lot of this hyper independence that we see in modern women goes back to that fact. Like, we have seen all of this play out in front of our eyes. I mean, Alex,
To some degree, I think she's right about the hyper independence, not specific to women. I think it's a US thing. It's like the hyper independence shows up even when we're talking about, like, for instance, right now, SNAP benefits are being slashed. And part of that is, well, I'm not sharing my money. I worked for this money and I'm not sharing it. I don't care if a person is hungry. I don't care if a child is hungry. That is hyper independence. You only care about yourself, you care about your nuclear family, and that's pretty much it. So the hyper independence and saying that it is only women on the left who experience hyper independence it's just like false, misguided. Absolutely not. Hyper independence shows up for us in the US all over the place. And I do think that, like I said earlier, there's a part of our culture that has really abandoned the value of participating in relationship with a community. Esther Perel, who is a world renowned sex therapist, she's awesome. She has this really great part of one of her books, I can't remember which one, where she talks about how when we were living in communities, you had a person who was able to be your confidant. You had a best friend. You had a person who could help you with your childcare. You had a person who could help you cook some days. People were living in community with each other. And now what we do is we roll up all of those responsibilities and you want to find them in one partner. You want to find a partner who's your best friend, the best lover, the best parent they could possibly be, a confidant. It's like that's too much. It's too much weight to put on one person. It's a lot. It's a lot. And it's not how we have done this before. So, that's part of it. What I don't like is her tone, and the implication that she's making here is that it is liberal women who want to go to college and have a career before they have children, that they are wrong for doing that. And I don't think that that is a fair representation. We are now living in a time where we need two incomes for most households. So why shouldn't she have a career? Why shouldn't she also just be able to explore what she wants to explore? Like, men are not a requirement to women anymore. Families are not a requirement for women anymore. I think it's a little bit ridiculous to have the stress of replacement for the US. Like, we're going to be fine. And the only reason why the government gives so much of a shit if we are going to be replacing the amount of people is because they want little consumers. They want people who are just going to buy and buy and buy and buy and buy houses, buy products, like open up businesses. If the economy starts to suffer because there are not enough people anymore, that's what they're worried about. It's not about traditional family values. It's about supporting our economy, and it's garbage.
Cooper of Call Her Daddy is a perfect example of this. We actually talked about her also in the Red Pill dating episode because her whole philosophy is be a man, have sex with whoever you want, build your life, focus on you, punish men for the things that you believe they have done to you or other women, and then you'll get
I've never
around to
heard her
getting
say that.
married or doing the other things later. But right now,
To punish
girl boss
men.
and treat them like crap. And these types of attitudes have led to an
Treat them
entire
like
generation.
crap. I'm not a big Alex Cooper fan. I listened to the podcast like a long, long time ago when it first started, and it's since evolved. And I feel like it's like a totally different thing now, which is, a whole other thing for a whole other day. I don't agree with a lot of what Alex Cooper was sharing. Like, I will never forget that she said cheat or be cheated on as like genuine advice. And like, I know this was a long time ago, and I know she's married now, but I don't remember her saying that men should like suffer. I don't remember that. But I do think that there have been times where, for sure, especially in the beginning of the Call Her Daddy days, there was a lot of really, really irresponsible advice that was flying around.
Now, these women have decided that they don't even like men. They don't even want men in the slightest. They do not need them. Take a look.
But also, okay, this is kind of crazy to me because it's like when conservative folks talk about how when people go to college, it turns you liberal. Okay, so what you're telling me is as you get more educated, you become more liberal. Hmm, hmm, hmm. That's interesting. It's a similar thing here where it's like if women no longer need men to survive, and then what they do is they go out and build this beautiful full life for themselves, and then they're no longer interested in men, that tells me something about the men, not the women. That tells me that they are not adjusting to the change in landscape. And you have to. Both sides are adjusting. And for women their adjustment is okay, well, if this is a sacrifice that I want to make, then this is a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. And so it's sort of like forcing men to really look at how are you showing up in your relationships? You now have to find your value in the dating landscape that has nothing to do with your money because that's not what women want so much anymore.
This article was written by a woman who, number one, was in an open marriage and then divorced her husband after deciding that she wanted to be with another one of her male partners who never wanted a committed relationship with her. Number two says that men are, quote, what is rotten in this state of straightness. Number three, ridiculed men over dinner at a vegan restaurant with girlfriends.
Of
Says
course,
that the
we're
men
laughing
she
at
wants are,
vegan.
quote, not
Okay.
wanting me badly enough, not communicating with me clearly enough, and not devoting themselves to me. She seems like a peach. And lastly, writes all of this in a magazine rather than a personal diary. And in
Okay, so fuck this guy. That last piece is so fucking misogynistic, as is the whole thing. But you know what I can't fucking stand? It's like the bullying attitude, and we have it on both sides, but the conservative people are so fucking rude when they do it. Like, why are we laughing at a vegan restaurant? Like, why is that funny? She likes to eat vegetables. Why is that funny? Also, better for the environment. Thank you. And then the part where she says that men are not wanting me badly enough, not communicating with me clearly enough, and not devoting themselves to me. They have not been well equipped for great communication. So I get that. I also think that it's like the not wanting me badly enough, not devoting themselves to me. That's the whole thing where it's like, well, if we now have figured out that we don't require marriage for survival, then I don't really need to chase you down anymore. I think the best kinds of relationships are ones where both people are chasing each other down because you're excited and you want to get to know each other. But if you're the only one doing it, then that doesn't feel very good either.
But back to the article, this author has turned all of this, all of her issues, everything we just read, into a problem with men instead of taking any kind of accountability for her own attitudes or her own actions that are 100% pushing away men.
I will say that part of my coaching practice and some of the conversations that I have, sometimes even on Chewed Gum, the live show, when you can take responsibility for the life that you've created, you get control back in the situation. And when you're able to do that in like a very radical way, you would be shocked at how empowering it is. We hear take responsibility and it like switches this little thing in our brain that's like, "Oh, that's what my parents would say to me," or like my teachers would say to me, and it feels like you're being reprimanded. But I think that there's a perspective shift that can be offered here that taking responsibility gives you control.
And eventually, I admitted to him that it had felt more natural to me to default to, quote, wounded female rather than assume responsibility for my desires. He, for his part, described a large looming ex whose adept use of guilt had left its mark. Because, of course, blaming men for all of your problems and just opting out of dating entirely is easier than taking responsibility for your life and your situation and working to become a better human being that people would want to date.
You can only change your own actions, you can't change everyone else's. The context that she's spinning this is we are not talking about the same thing.
People. And this whole attitude sounds so familiar to me. I mean, just go on X. It sounds like the incels, and this is how you end up with op-eds and situations like this. You pushed them away, and then the men responded and said, okay, fine, we're out. Many of them responded kind of toxically, in my opinion, and now you are doing the same, and you somehow think that it's better.
It feels like she's reprimanding everyone. I think where we're running up against a wall is the requests that we're making are not hard a lot of the time. Listen to the women around you and maybe don't listen to men on podcasts who are most of them are single and they are giving the worst advice ever. To the same tune, though, if you are a woman and you are looking to date and you're trying to find somebody, and then you're listening to other women say, fuck all these men, like, I don't know how that's going to help you find someone. Like, the rage bait on both sides is what's creating this animosity towards each other. And we have to put the guns down. We have to. It feels like that Spider-Man meme where everyone's like, that's what it feels like sometimes. I also don't think that the answer is reprimanding women for wanting more out of their partners. There is something in between.
There are two sides to this coin, and thankfully, people have started to point it out. This is what one writer said in the London Times as a response to that.
Hold on. She also is like, there are two sides to this coin, and thankfully, people are finally pointing it out. Ma'am, women put in all of this work to fight for the rights that they have, and they are now having to train up the men around them to be appropriate partners for them. That is not really fair. However, we have not done a very good job of rebuilding what men and masculinity should look like now that women have choices. They have choices. They don't need this. To say that it's women for the first time have to take responsibility, are you fucking serious?
Heterofatalism feels dangerously close to the noxious worldview of the incel.
This is pretty well documented that incels are fucking violent. So the danger and the charge behind someone becoming an incel is very different than someone becoming a femcel.
They like, but who only date the high status men. This is a self confirming conspiracy theory that repels all women.
This is also, we've had this kind of call on the line before where we did this whole song and dance with this guy. And when we get to the end of the call, we said, so what is the solution? What do you want women to do? And he said, well, women need to lower their standards. Why is the answer that women need to lower their standards? They just figured out a way to out earn degrees and out earn an income, and now they have to lower their standards. Why is it that the men around them, you know what? I'm going to use something that I'm sure Brett Cooper really loves, pull themselves up by their bootstraps and figure it out too. I say that, and at the same time, I do feel a lot of empathy for what, what men are going through right now. But like, this is like, come on.
How is heterofatalism, the idea that a straight woman's
Scuppers.
desire is embarrassing, hopeless, and imprisoning, according to the Sexual Health Alliance, any better? Heterofatalism and incel
Oh my God. The Sexual Health Alliance. That is where I've done my sex education training. That is so funny.
This is not just a man issue. It's not just a woman issue. What we are seeing is complete and utter dysfunction. People
On both
moving like
sides.
ships in the night,
Yeah,
completely missing the point.
she's
And I
right.
love how this author in the
Well,
Times wrapped up this piece.
I don't think that all of what she's saying is right. The thing that she is touching on that I do agree with is it is sort of like ships passing in the night, where we have the disconnect is why is it that the people who have to compromise yet again are the women? It's incredibly frustrating to be told yet again that you have to compromise. And that the second that men are not on the pedestal that they have been for literally all of modern society, we have to lower our standards for them. That's not fair. That's not fair. That doesn't make people feel good. Of course, it's making people angry. I don't think the answer is women have to lower their standards. I think the answer is that men need a better path for finding some emotional intelligence and stability, finding community with other friends, expanding what their life gets to look like. Give them tools, give them resources.
When a man is hurt by one woman and blames them all, his response is rightly seen as juvenile and sexist. But when women blame all men, a new field of sexual studies is born. It should not escape reasonable people that this is hypocrisy. She's precisely right. And that is what feminism has bred in our culture. This
No.
idea.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew she was going to be like, and that's what feminism. Oh, that makes me so mad. It makes me so mad. Feminism is wanting everyone to have an equal opportunity to have the life that they want to have. That means men, that means women, that means everyone in between. That is what feminism is meant to be. This happened because women were finally given opportunities. So, in that sense, yeah, I guess it was feminism. Women were given opportunities to expand on their lives. And then men were not given the tools to expand how they value themselves beyond their job, which is now kind of irrelevant to many women, not all, but many. I don't agree with women making, I hate men, fuck all the men, I don't need them sort of statements, but you cannot turn around and say that it's feminism. You cannot.
That any problem women have in their individual lives suddenly becomes this big whole thing that we all then have to answer to.
Like men haven't done that for all time. For all of time. They're doing it right now. Men are lonely, guess who has to fix it? Women are suddenly way smarter than they ever were with all of their degrees, and they're making more money than they ever have. Guess who needs to still fix it? Huh?
But continuing to just point fingers, and most disastrously, in my opinion, to blame individuals in your life that you might come across or meet in the dating landscape for these huge societal problems is not the solution. The
I can't
nice
wait
girl
for
that you
this
meet
video
on
to be
Hinge
over.
might not be the issue. And the Trump administration, their heart is in the right place with trying to
It's
provide
not.
incentives for people, trying to make it easier for people to have children. Policy alone cannot change our culture, but we can. The way that we date, the way that we treat other people in our lives, the way that we take responsibility for our actions and our well-being, that is what matters, and that is how we can change culture.
Okay. I went to a conference, actually a Sexual Health Alliance conference, last month, and there was a survey that was done on 2,000 American singles between April and May of 2025. And I'm going to give you some of the statistics that I have from the survey. This was conducted by Justin Lee Miller. I think they did it at the Kinsey Institute, but this whole survey is not out yet. But I will share with you the numbers that he shared with us. When they asked what women were looking for, 2 in 4 women and 1 in 5 men are not looking for any relationships at all. So, far more women are not looking for relationships than men are. This is true. Specifically, millennials are the most likely to not be looking for any kind of relationship. Another interesting thing is that women are more likely to look for traditional dating rules than men are, according to this survey. When they were trying to dig in on why people are not dating, Part of what their hypothesis was that women are viewing dating as more risky than it's ever been, which makes sense. We've rolled back reproductive rights and the way that we treat each other, not so great. There are very reasonable concerns for sexual violence as well. According to the survey, honesty was the number one trait that both genders, they only included men and women in this survey, desired in their partner. However, men were ranking physical attractiveness as more important than women were. They also asked this group about their sex life. 2 in 5 men and 1 in 3 women describe themselves currently as celibate. So, anyway, that's a little bit more context and information for you. I wish that that study were out already, but you are getting a sneak peek at it. I'm sure that it will come out hopefully sometime early next year. My thoughts on this entire video is there is a lot of nuance missing from this conversation. Everybody is able to take responsibility for the life that they have created. However, there is a really big problem with the way that the responsibility is being weighted here. When you are looking at people and telling them to lower their standards when women are not looking for the money anymore because they're able to out earn men in some circumstances, and women are not rating physical attractiveness as high as men are. So what standards are they supposed to be lowering? So like it just to again flip it on women is fucking unbelievable. I really am trying to be sensitive and empathetic to what is happening with men right now. I'm deeply interested in it and I want to learn more. Sexuality, intimacy, relationships is so much more nuanced than Brett Cooper knows. Part of me is like, I wish she wouldn't talk about this because she doesn't know enough about this entire area, but she is a person who is married and has dated and whatever. So, like, she does, I don't know. You know what? I'm tired. It's almost midnight. I'm going to bed. Please like and subscribe and check out my other videos on this channel. You can watch me every Tuesday night on Chewed Gum on the Line. And make sure that you are subscribed to this channel because I post 2 videos a week every single week. And I would love to have you join us. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.